Thank you so much, Jeff. So if drivers are hitting the road despite getting hit pretty badly at the pump, well, then the economy's got to be doing all right. Pretty well, right? Well, who's going to get the credit? According to a recent poll, 2/3 of American adults think President Trump's policies are having an impact on the economy. And the gap in a generic congressional ballot is narrowing as well right now, with the Democrats' lead actually shrinking. Is it because of the economic success? What do we make of it all? Here to explain, we have Washington Examiner's Emily Jashinsky, Fox News contributor Jessica Tarlov, and Stand United's Angela Morabito. Good to see you all. Angela, starting with you, if the economy's doing well, people are out driving this holiday weekend, are they going to say, thank you, President Trump, thank you, Republicans?
Well, they should, because Democrats have done everything that they could to stop this economic upturn. If you look at the narrowing gap between a generic ballot featuring Republicans and then with Democrats, that gap really starts to shrink right at the very moment that tax reform took effect and people started seeing more of what they earn actually show up at their paychecks. So this is something that has definitely lined right up with tax reform, and it's something that the Democrats, Nancy Pelosi called it crumbs. So the Democrats have created a real problem for themselves by opposing the stuff that's made our economy so much stronger.
It's the ultimate let them eat cake kind of comment. Jessica, exactly. How do they gain momentum again, given that the economy is gaining so much momentum?
I think they start by not saying crumbs again. So we'll leave crumbs behind. That is now part of our campaign messaging here going forward. I think that there is a way to weave a message that includes how people are feeling better, consumer confidence up, economy performing well, whether they're giving credit to President Trump or understanding that there were conditions put in place by President Obama beforehand that have led to this, while advocating for Democrat policies which would increase people's prosperity and the average Americans, focusing on middle and lower income Americans. The generic ballot is shrinking, but Democrat enthusiasm in these special elections is still way up above Republicans. So that's something to also be paying attention to.
Yeah,
Democrats are really fired up.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I mean, especially when they're out there accusing him of being a racist or, other things. Well, I mean, you look at how they acted about this whole immigration thing and MS-13, and they're trying to accuse him of somehow not liking an entire group of people because he mentions that gang members are in fact animals.
He does have a long history of making some racist-like comments, if you'd like me to say. But if you look back at Charlottesville, you look at the Central Park Five, you look at the criminals and rapists comments, you look at the SOBs, the NFL
Well, this
players.
is what the Democrats are going to try and do, because, Emily, if you got a great economy and people feel prosperous about their future, then how do you fight that, right? If you're a Democrat, you resort to the kinds of things Jessica was talking about. But isn't it ultimately people's pocketbooks that they vote?
Well, yeah, I definitely think Democrats are struggling to come up with a message because Republicans are presiding over a good economy. And I think we should add, while we're talking about the generic ballot lead has only been shrinking for the past few weeks, about a month or so. Late April is when that really started to shrink. And that also coincided with progress made on the international stage with North Korea. And so that's another thing to think about. But I think both sides need to be more cautious than optimistic, right? So Democrats came into this year with a big lead in the generic ballot, historic trends on their side, and a generally unpopular president. Some of those things are eroding. Republicans should be careful to celebrate, because if you look at what happened in Georgia, the numbers for Democratic voters in that primary, that gubernatorial primary, were up. We've seen this in Wisconsin. Scott Walker is warning about it. So Republicans need to take it seriously and not jump on a celebration too early. It's only May.
Well, Angela, complacency doesn't get you anywhere. I think Hillary Clinton showed us all that, right, by not going to Pennsylvania. You can't be complacent, because otherwise, you really do run the risk that the Democrats are able to pull a rabbit out of the hat.
Exactly. Complacency would certainly be a mistake for either party. And I think what you're seeing now with the reaction to Democrats, look at Chance the Rapper, who came out and said, hey, Democrats have been taking our votes for granted. More and more people are beginning to realize that. And when you see Democrats as the party that's very concerned about not hurting MS-13's feelings, that group is going to be real small. That's going to be a lonely group. Now, Republicans need to be careful, because this time around, they don't have Hillary Clinton to run against. Her illegal behavior and her corruption brought a lot of people to the polls. They don't have that this time. So
I don't even know if it was that as much as it was just her personality itself. She was not a good candidate. And then you layer all that other stuff on top of it. And people weren't motivated. And motivation, right, to actually get people out there is a little tricky. I will give you this, Jessica. When people are feeling kind of good about stuff and everything's okay, everything's hunky-dory, maybe they're not as motivated, right? Maybe the Republicans, maybe there's some risk there that people are like, okay, things are pretty good. I'm liking my life as it is. And they're not feeling quite the drive to get to the polls.
Well, that's what happens generally in midterm elections. We're not in a presidential year where everyone is super hyped up about everything here. That's why I think actually a lot of Republicans have been going out there, like Ted Cruz, for instance, and saying Democrats are going to impeach President Trump if they take control. And that's why you need to get to the polls in order to protect this president and to protect Republican control. So that's a motivating factor that they're using there. Complacency, certainly not the answer for both sides. Nothing taken for granted. And it'll be interesting because there are trend lines that are benefiting both sides here. But again, I would say if you look at what's going on right now, I completely agree with what Emily was saying in terms of Republicans, that you can't just sit on your laurels here. If people are saying, oh, the economy's looking good, and that may be due to Republicans, Dems are fired up. The resistance is strong. And it's not all about identity politics, and it's certainly not about Hillary Clinton's illegal behavior.
No, it's not identity politics anymore. I think actually, dare I say, it's not even so partisan as much as it is in Washington. Americans want what is best for them. Political party be damned. They want the policy that's going to secure our economy and secure our nation. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. So good to see you guys. Hey, happy Memorial Day to all of you. All right.